December 23, 1944, 19,000 feet above the Ardennes forest, Georg-Peter Eder watches the lone P-51 Mustang below him, trailing smoke from its engine cowling. The American aircraft wobbles, losing altitude in erratic descents. Through his gun sight, Eder counts the distance, 1,200 meters in closing. He has done this 78 times before. The Knight's Cross at his throat confirms it. Eder signals his swarm. 4 Focke-Wulf 190s in finger 4 formation. They peel off in textbook precision, diving toward what appears to be easy prey. Behind them, 5 more FW-190s from the second swarm follow, engines screaming as they descend through thin December clouds. The American pilot's name is Second Lieutenant William Shomo, 24 years old. 6 months ago, he was fixing tractors on his family's farm outside Jeannette, Pennsylvania. Today, he has 3.5 confirmed kills and a damaged oil cooler that threatens to seize his Packard Merlin V1650 engine at any moment. Eder doesn't know that the smoke isn't from battle damage. He doesn't know that Shomo's wingman, Lieutenant Paul Lipscomb, circles 4,000 FT above in perfect ambush position. And he certainly doesn't know that the struggling Mustang below him is bait, and that the farm boy at the controls learned deflection, shooting hunting pheasants over Pennsylvania wheat fields with a 12-gauge shotgun. What happens in the next 6 minutes will end with 9 German fighters destroyed. One of the Luftwaffe's most experienced aces dead, and a Medal of Honor citation that military analysts will study for the next 80 years. By late December 1944, the Luftwaffe is bleeding to death in the frozen skies over Western Europe. Germany's surprise offensive through the Ardennes, later known as the Battle of the Bulge, represents Hitler's final gamble to split the Allied armies and force a negotiated peace. For this desperate thrust, the Oberkommando Luftwaffe scrapes together every available fighter squadron, pulling pilots from defensive duties over the Reich itself. Operation Bodenplatte, the massive New Year's Day air offensive, is in final planning stages. But the Luftwaffe's immediate mission is simpler and more brutal. Achieve local air superiority over the Bulge salient, long enough for panzer columns to reach their objectives. The problem is numbers and quality. American P-51D Mustangs now dominate European airspace with a combat radius exceeding 1,000 when equipped with drop tanks. The Packard-built V1657 engine generates 490 horsepower at war emergency power, pushing the Mustang to 437 mph at 25,000. 6 caliber. Browning machine guns deliver 3,600 rounds per minute of combined firepower. Most critically, the Mustang can escort heavy bombers to Berlin and back, something no German fighter can match in range. German pilots who survive encounters with Mustang formations describe the psychological impact. Oberleutnant Heinz, no rights in his combat diary. The American fighters appear everywhere. We are outnumbered 5-1 on good days, 15-1 on bad ones. They have fuel to chase us to our own airfields and strafe us as we land. The statistics back up the terror. In November 1944 alone, the 8th Air Force claims 458 German aircraft destroyed in air combat. Luftwaffe records acknowledge the loss of 329 fighters that month, with 214 pilots killed or missing. Production cannot replace the machines. Training cannot replace the men. But the Focke-Wulf 190 remains a deadly opponent in the hands of experienced pilots. Its BMW 801D radial engine produces 1,700 horsepower, giving the FW90 a superior roll rate and dive acceleration compared to the Mustang. 4 20mm cannons and 2 13mm machine guns can shred a P-51 with a single well-placed burst. At altitudes below 15,000 FT, where most air combat over the Ardennes occurs, the FWE 190 holds tactical advantages in speed and firepower. Hauptmann Georg-Peter Eder is precisely the kind of veteran the Luftwaffe cannot afford to lose. He transferred to the Western Front from the Eastern Theater in mid-1944, bringing hard-won expertise in deflection shooting and vertical combat maneuvers. His 78 confirmed victories include 12 four-engine bombers, high-value kills that earned him rapid promotion, and Germany's highest decorations. Intelligence reports from December 1944 reveal the Luftwaffe's tactical doctrine for the Ardennes offensive aggressive swarm formations, hunting isolated Allied fighters, avoiding large-scale engagements that favor American numerical superiority. Strike damaged aircraft, exploit weather gaps, withdraw before reinforcements arrive. It is a doctrine born of desperation, designed to inflict maximum damage, while preserving Germany's dwindling pool of experienced fighter pilots. What this doctrine doesn't account for is the farm boy factor. The American pilots who learned mechanical intuition, repairing equipment that couldn't afford to fail. Who developed situational awareness, tracking livestock across open terrain, and who grew up shooting moving targets where ammunition cost money and misses meant going hungry. The Luftwaffe's leadership, trained in the aristocratic traditions of Prussian military mise, consistently underestimates these men. They see the American pilots as products of mass training programs, technically competent, but lacking the warrior ethos forged through years of rigorous selection and indoctrination. On December 23, 1944, that underestimation is about to prove fatal. Georg-Peter Eder's combat philosophy is documented in Luftwaffe training bulletins distributed throughout 1944. He advocates the Schwarm's finger four formation because it provides mutual support while maintaining offensive flexibility. His preferred tactic against lone American fighters, high-side attack from the enemy's blind spot. Typically, the 7 position with diving speed advantage and the sun at his back. Against damaged aircraft, the approach is even simpler. Wounded prey cannot maneuver, cannot defend, cannot escape. German tactical doctrine in late 1944 emphasizes this pragmatic ruthlessness. Oberst Johannes Steinhoff writes in Operational Directives, "We cannot afford prolonged engagements. Strike decisively and disengage. Every sort must produce results that justify fuel expenditure and pilot risk." For Eder and his staff, the smoking P-51 below represents exactly this kind of efficient opportunity. A quick kill that costs minimal ammunition and exposes his formation to minimal risk. What Eder doesn't consider is that American tactical doctrine has evolved too. By December 1944, the 82nd Fighter Group, Shomo's unit, has adopted what pilots call tactics. When an aircraft suffers non-critical damage, the pilot has discretion to use his wounded bird as bait, provided his wingman maintains tactical overwatch. Intelligence officers analyze German attack patterns and note the Luftwaffe's predatory focus on stragglers and damaged aircraft. The Americans turn this aggression into a trap, but institutionalizing the tactic requires pilots willing to make themselves targets. It requires wingmen who can hold position through agonizing minutes of watching their partner become the focus of enemy attack runs. And it requires absolute trust between flight leads and their number 2. Records from the 82nd Fighter Group indicate that Shomo and Lipscomb have flown 31 combat sorties together since September 1944. Their tactical synchronization is documented in mission debriefings. Lipscomb consistently maintains altitude advantage, while Shomo prosecutes low-altitude targets, then reverses roles for mutual defense. Today, they're flying armed reconnaissance over the northern shoulder of the Bulge Salient when Shomo's oil cooler takes flak damage from German mobile anti-aircraft positions near Malmöd. The damage is real, but manageable enough to produce visible smoke without critically degrading engine performance. Show radios, Lipscomb, actual damage or tactical opportunity. They have perhaps 3 minutes to decide before German fighters arrive. Intelligence estimates suggest German standing patrols in this sector consist of 8 to 12 aircraft. If Shomo and Lipscomb attempt to fight, They'll be outnumbered at least 4-1. Standard procedure dictates immediate withdrawal to friendly airspace. But Shomo watches the F-Wolves diving toward him through scattered cumulus clouds. 9 aircraft in 2 distinct formations. He calculates angles, closure rates, and the distance to Lipscomb's concealed position above. The math works barely. He noses his Mustang into a steeper descent, adding realistic terror to his performance as damaged prey. Black smoke pours more heavily from the cowling as he runs the engine deliberately rich, wasting fuel for visual effect. Georg-Peter Eder closes to 800 mi, then 600. His wingmen spread into attack formation. They never look up. Before we continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what you know about the farm boys who became fighter aces in World War II. Drop a comment below and let me know if you'd heard about William Shomo's Medal of Honor action before. And if you're enjoying these deep dives into World War II aviation history, hit that subscribe button. These stories take serious research to get the details right, and knowing you're out there makes it all worthwhile. 11:47 hours, altitude 16,000 ft and descending. Shomo watches the lead, FW-90, close to 400 meters through his rear view mirror. He can see the muzzle flash from ranging shots. The German pilot testing his guns, preparing for the killing burst. Timing is everything now. Shomo's left hand rests on the throttle, his right on the control stick. His feet press the rudder pedals with pressure, learned from years of controlling farm equipment across uneven terrain. The Mustang's airframe shudders as the Packard Merlin engine protests the deliberately fuel-rich mixture ratio. Eder's Schwarm splits. 2 FW-190s swing wide for bracketing shots. The other 2 maintain pursuit directly astern. It's textbook. Eliminate escape routes. Concentrate firepower. Destroy the target in a single, coordinated pass. 300 meters. Shomo's finger hovers over the radio transmit button. 250 members. He sees tracer rounds arc past his canopy. 20 million cannon shells that miss by 3 Malers because Eder is leading his target, anticipating evasive maneuvers that haven't come yet. 200 meter. Shomo keys the radio. One word now. 4,000 now FT above. Paul Lipscomb rolls inverted and pulls through into a vertical dive that pushes his airspeed indicator past 450 miles per hour. His P-51 screams down through thin clouds, invisible against the gray overcast, until the moment he breaks into clear sky directly above the German form. The physics are brutal and inescapable. Lipscomb's altitude advantage converts to kinetic energy. His Mustang drops like a stooping falcon, and the Germans, committed to their attack dive on Shomo, cannot reverse direction without bleeding the speed that keeps them alive. Lipscomb's gun sight centers on the trailing FW-90 in Eder's Schwarm. 650 caliber Browning machine guns open fire at 300 meters inside the range, where missing becomes nearly impossible. Lipscomb learned gunnery on the ranges at Eglin Field, Florida, but he learned deflection shooting watching his father drop ducks over Louisiana bayous. The principle is identical. Lead the target. Account for relative motion. Squeeze smoothly. The FW-190 disintegrates. Lipscomb's armor-piercing incendiary rounds rip through the engine cowling, detonate fuel lines, and shred control cables. The German pilot, Oberfeldwebel Klaus MK, 23 confirmed kills, doesn't have time to bail out before his fighter explodes. Elapsed time, 8 seconds. Eder sees his wingman's death in his peripheral vision. Instinct and training take over. He breaks hard left, abandoning his attack run on Shomo to address the new threat diving from above. The G-forces slam him into his seat as the FW-190 snaps through a 6G turn that would black out an inexperienced pilot. But the maneuver costs, him speed and altitude, and the situational awareness that kept him alive through 78 previous victories. Shomo reverses his faint descent. He slams the throttle forward to war emergency power, 61 in of manifold pressure, and pulls back on the stick. The Mustang's nose rises through the horizon as Shomo converts his diving speed into a climbing Chandel's second wingman. The German pilot never sees him. He's focused on Lipscomb, who's now engaged in a turning fight with two other FW-190s from the second swarm. Shomo fires from 200 meters. His first burst hits low, stitching the FW-190's belly with 50 caliber holes that perforate fuel tanks and hydraulic lines. His second burst, a 2-con trigger pull that expends 120 rounds per gun, walks up the fuselage and into the cockpit. Lieutenant von Weiber's fighter rolls onto its back and spins toward the frozen forest below. Elapsed time, 31 seconds. 2 German fighters destroyed. The ambush has succeeded beyond expectation, but now mathematics reasserts itself. 7 FW-190s remain airborne. 2 P-51s against 7 is still impossible odds by any rational calculation. Except Eder's formation has shattered. The German pilots scatter into individual aircraft, abandoning the mutual support of the swarm for desperate survival. Some dive for the deck, seeking the ground clutter that might break enemy radar lock. Others climb toward cloud cover. 2 turn to engage, but they turn into each other's flight paths, forcing evasive maneuvers that waste critical seconds. Discipline collapses when death arrives unexpectedly. Shomo and Lipscomb exploit the chaos. They don't fight as 2 aircraft. They fight as a single organism with shared tactical awareness, honed through 3 months of near-daily combat. Lipscomb calls targets. Bandit breaking right. You're 12 ORs high. Shomo responds, tally, engaging, check 6. They maneuver in complementary arcs, each turn, putting one Mustang in position to cover the other's vulnerable 6 wires position. When Lipscomb fixates on a target, Shomo clears his tail. When Shomo pursues, Lipscomb maintains altitude advantage and calls incoming threats. Eder recognizes the danger. He radios for his formation to regroup, to re-establish the defensive discipline that might let them survive long enough for reinforcements. But 4 of his aircraft are already gone, destroyed or fleeing, and the remaining pilots hear panic in his voice. $14,000 FT to Shomo catches a diving FW-190. The German pilot Feldwebel Ernst Hoffmann tries to escape using the Fala-Wolf's superior dive acceleration, but Shomo doesn't chase. He leads, firing into the space where geometry dictates the FW-190 will be in 1.2 seconds. 550 caliber rounds intersect with Hoffmann's aircraft. The fighter's tail section separates from the fuselage. Elapsed time 2 minutes 48 seconds. 4 German fighters destroyed. Lipscomb downs his second FW-190 with a high deflection shot that demonstrates the Mustang's stability as a gun platform. The German aircraft, already damaged by his first pass, catches fire and corkscrews into cloud cover, trailing black smoke. 5 destroyed. Eder realizes his staff is being annihilated. He orders full retreat. Military authorization to disengage and preserve surviving aircraft. 3 Fun 90s break contact and run at maximum power toward German lines. But Eder himself makes the fatal decision to stay. Perhaps it's pride, the Knight's Cross ace, refusing to flee from 2 American pilots. Perhaps it's the tactical calculation that he can buy time for his surviving pilots to escape. Perhaps it's simply the warrior's refusal to abandon his men while they die. He reverses hard, climbing to meet Shomo in a head-on pass that comes down to nerve and marksmanship. Both pilots fire simultaneously at 400 meter. Cannon shells and machine gun bullets cross paths in the space between converging aircraft. The closure rate exceeds 600 km/h, giving each pilot less than 2 seconds of trigger time before collision becomes inevitable. Sho's rounds strike first. They hammer into the FW-190's engine cowling and the BMW 801D radial engine, 1,700 horsepower, of precisely machined German engineering seizes instantly. Metal shrapnel from destroyed pistons rips through the firewall and into the cockpit. Ed's cannon shells miss. Not by much. Close enough that Shomo hears them crack past his canopy, but in aerial gunnery, a miss by 3M is as useless as a miss by 3 miles. The Fu-90 noses over. Eder tries to bail out, but his canopy won't jettison. Damage from Shomo's rounds has jammed the release mechanism. He rides his crippled fighter, down through 8,000, FT, 6,000, 4,000. Still fighting the canopy until the FW-190 impacts. Frozen ground, 3 kilometers south of Malmedy. Elapsed time, 5 minutes, 53 seconds. 6 Focke-Wulf 190s destroyed. 3 damaged and fleeing. 1 Luftwaffe ace dead. 2 American pilots unscratched. The after-action debriefing at the 82nd Fighter Group's headquarters in Chevers, Belgium, lasts 4 hours. Intelligence officers struggle to reconcile the combat footage from Shomo's gun cameras with the claim that 2 pilots destroyed 6 German fighters in under 6 minutes. But the evidence is irrefutable. The film shows each kill in grainy 16mm detail. FWW-190s breaking apart under $50. Caliber fire. Pilots attempting to bail out. Aircraft spinning into clouds or plummeting in flames. Gun camera footage doesn't lie, and the frame count confirms the timeline. What the analysts want to understand is how. Major James Heron, the 802's operations officer, reviews the tactical sequence and identifies 3 critical factors that combined to produce the lopsided outcome. First, the bait and ambush doctrine itself. Similar tactics appear in reports from other fighter groups, but they rarely succeed against experienced German formations. The Luftwaffe's veterans typically maintain tactical overwatch aircraft positioned to counter ambush attempts. Eder's failure to station top cover above his own attack formation represents a catastrophic violation of basic fighter doctrine. The analysts conclude that Eder's aggression overwhelmed his judgment. The sight of a damaged, isolated P-51 triggered predatory instinct that bypassed tactical caution. Veterans who encountered the baiting tactic multiple times learned to treat damaged aircraft as potential traps. Eder encountered it for the first time and the last. Second, the collapse of German formation discipline. 8th Air Force Intelligence compiles reports from dozens of engagements throughout late 1944 and notes a troubling pattern. Luftwaffe formations increasingly disintegrate under surprise attack. The root cause is pilot experience. Germany's training pipeline collapses under Allied bombing of fuel production facilities. New pilots reach combat units with 60 hours of flight time compared to 300 hours in 1942. When Lipscomb killed the first FW-90, Eder's formation included at least 3 pilots, with fewer than 10 combat sorties. These novices lacked the instinctive discipline to maintain formation under attack. They scattered fighters die individually killed by opponents who maintain mutual support and coordinated tactics. Third, the Mustang's specific advantages in turning engagements. Technical analysis reveals why Shomo and Lipscomb succeeded in the chaotic dogfight that followed the initial ambush. The P-51D's combat radius of 1,000 plus miles comes from massive fuel capacity, 269 Gall internal, plus 2 75 Gall drop tanks. By December 1944, American pilots routinely drop external tanks before combat, but they enter the fight with full internal fuel. The FW-190, by contrast, operates near its maximum combat radius over the Ardennes. AER's fighters have perhaps 30 minutes of combat endurance before they must withdraw or face fuel exhaustion. This time, pressure forces German pilots to either commit quickly to attacks or disengage entirely. They cannot afford the prolonged maneuvering combat that American pilots with fuel to spare can sustain indefinitely. When the engagement stretched past 3 minutes, the Germans faced impossible choices. Continue fighting with dwindling fuel reserves, or attempt disengagement from opponents who could chase them all the way to their own airfields. General Karl Spaatz, commanding the U.S. Strategic Air Forces in Europe, receives the report and immediately orders distribution of tactical bulletins, highlighting Shomo's engagement. The key lessons appear in training materials distributed throughout ETH and 9th Air Force fighter units. Damaged aircraft can become effective tactical bait, provided adequate top cover maintains ambush position. German pilots demonstrate predictable aggression against isolated targets. Exploit this. Maintain formation discipline even during surprise engagements. The side that preserves mutual support wins. The revelation isn't that 2 skilled pilots defeated 9 opponents. Similar lopsided victories occur throughout the air war when timing, positioning, and luck align perfectly. The revelation is that American pilots now possess the tactical sophistication, aircraft performance, and numerical superiority to routinely engineer these perfect alignments. The Luftwaffe can no longer afford to trade kills at any ratio. They're losing the mathematics of attrition, and they know it. General Douglas MacArthur personally presents William Shomo with the Medal of Honor on April 3, 1945. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty." It details the 6-kill engagement and notes that Shomo's actions occurred during a single combat sortie, lasting less than 8 minutes from initial contact to final victory. Paul Lipscomb receives the Distinguished Service Cross, the nation's 2nd highest valor decoration, for his role in the engagement. The award ceremony occurs at Clark Field in the Philippines, where the 82nd Fighter Group has redeployed to support operations against the Japanese home islands. Shomo survives the war, with 7 confirmed aerial victories, and returns to Pennsylvania, where he works as a mechanical engineer for Westinghouse. He rarely discusses the Medal of Honor action, deflecting questions with characteristic humility. "I had a good airplane and a great wingman. The Germans made mistakes. Things happened fast." He dies in 1990 at age 69. The immediate tactical impact of the December 23 engagement ripples through Allied fighter groups operating over Europe. Gun camera footage from Shomo's Mustang becomes required viewing in briefing rooms from England to Italy. Pilots analyze the attack geometry, the split-second timing of Lipscomb's ambush dive, and the complementary maneuvering that allowed 2 aircraft to dominate 9-bait and ambush tactics appear, with increasing frequency in combat reports throughout January and February 1945. The 357th Fighter Group documents 11 separate engagements where damaged aircraft successfully lured German fighters into prepared ambushes. The tactic's effectiveness degrades as Luftwaffe pilots learn to treat isolated stragglers with greater suspicion, but it remains viable through the war's final months. The long-term influence extends beyond specific tactics. Post-war Air Force doctrine emphasizes the importance of 2 aircraft fighting elements with absolute mutual support. The fluid 4 formation that dominates jet-age air combat descends directly from lessons learned by pilots like Shomo and Lipscomb. 2 ship elements with enough separation for independent maneuvering, but close enough for instantaneous mutual support. Korean War F-86 pilots study World War II gun camera footage as part of advanced fighter training. The principles remain identical. Maintain energy advantage, exploit enemy mistakes, preserve formation discipline, even during chaotic engagements. Colonel Francis Gabreski, who flew P-47s over Europe before commanding F-86 squadrons in Korea, directly credits World War II tactical innovations. "We didn't invent fighter combat in Korea. We refined what guys like Shomo proved worked." Historical assessment places the December 23 engagement within the broader context of Allied air superiority in late 1944. The Luftwaffe loses 456 fighters during the Battle of the Bulge, destroyed in combat, captured on overrun airfields, or abandoned due to fuel shortages. German fighter production actually increases through December 1944, but pilot quality plummets. The Luftwaffe can replace aircraft. It cannot replace men like Georg-Peter Eder. Records from the Bundesarchiv in Freiburg document Eder's death and note his final combat score: 78 confirmed victories, 26 on the Eastern Front, 52 in the West. He is buried in the German military cemetery at Lomo, Belgium, alongside 38,000 other German soldiers who died fighting in the West. His obituary in Luftwaffe personnel files includes this assessment from his commanding officer: an aggressive fighter pilot whose skill was exceeded only by his courage. His death represents an irreplaceable loss to the Reich. By December 1944, Germany has too many irreplaceable losses. Wars are won by nations, but battles are decided by individuals making split-second choices in moments of impossible pressure. William Shomo grew up repairing tractors and shooting fusils, skills that seemed utterly irrelevant to modern industrial warfare. Yet those farm boy competencies, mechanical intuition, situational awareness, instinctive marksmanship translated directly into aerial combat effectiveness. The Luftwaffe's aristocratic leadership never understood this. They believed warrior excellence emerged from selective breeding and rigorous indoctrination, that years of military tradition produced inherent superiority over American pilots fresh from civilian life. Georg-Peter Eder carried this assumption into combat on December 23, 1944. He saw a damaged aircraft piloted by a farm boy and calculated easy victory. He calculated wrong. The underestimation proved fatal. Not because Eder lacked skill or courage. His 78 victories testified to both, but because he failed to recognize that competence emerges from unexpected sources when necessity demands it. The Pennsylvania farm boy who learned deflection shooting hunting dinner possessed the same fundamental skills as the Prussian ace who learned them at military mise. The difference was resources and numbers and the industrial capacity to give skilled pilots fuel and ammunition and aircraft that could dominate European airspace. One navigation error, one tactical ambush, 9 German fighters destroyed in 6 minutes of savage combat over frozen French forests. Superior technology matters. Superior numbers matter more. But in the end, wars come down to this: individuals in cockpits making decisions that cannot be unmade, fighting for causes larger than themselves, while history watches and keeps score. If you found this story as fascinating as I did researching it, I'd appreciate if you'd like this video and subscribe to the channel. There are dozens more untold stories from World War II that deserve to be remembered, and I'll be bringing you a new one every week. What should I cover next?